Right, the mini transfer window is now open and the summer transfer window will spring open in just a couple of weeks from now on June the 16th. And I believe that we're now entering a period of time unlike any other season for the past 5, 6, 7 seasons where there are probably 4 or 5 teams that could go and win the Premier League next season. And as well as the signings of Liam Delap, the hopeful recalls of Andre Santos and Georgi Petrovic, I believe that Chelsea are only 2, maybe maximum 3 good, solid signings away from being just as worthy to compete for the Premier League title as the likes of Arsenal, of Manchester City, and anyone else for that matter. But to do that, we need to move on the deadwood. The very fucking expensive deadwood, by the way, at Chelsea Football Club. So without any further ado, here is every single player that needs to leave Chelsea this summer. Right, let's start off with the goalkeeper situation. I want Georgi Petrovic back in goal. There's also been rumours that we are in the market for a goalkeeper. And that, for me, means that one of Robert Sanchez or Jorgensen is going to leave the club. Now, we brought Jorgensen in, I believe, for about the same amount as Robert Sanchez. Jorgensen is obviously younger. Jorgensen hasn't got a stockpile of high-profile errors that Robert Sanchez has, which may put off maybe suitors. However, saying that, at the same time, I've listed all of it. I think that Sanchez is probably just as good right now as Jorgensen. So if we're looking at whoever it is out of the two of them playing backup to Petrovic or a top-class goalkeeper that we bring in, if I'm looking at a backup, I don't mind having Robert Sanchez and you'll get more money for Jorgensen. So let's say it was Jorgensen that gets moved on and let's say we get 20 mil for Jorgensen. Next up is Benoit Badiashile. Now, Benoit has blown hot and cold since he first came to Chelsea Football Club. I believe it was in the winter window that he arrived in the first season since the takeover. And at that point, playing next to Thiago Silva, I really rated Benoit Badiashile. I thought that he was a decent player. He looked mature beyond his years, and he didn't look like he had that many mistakes in him. But oh my God, how soon that changed. He has looked good at times even this season, but he's had shockers. And I just don't feel safe when Benoit Badiashile is playing. I do think that he needs his hand held, and in a young team, that's not a luxury you're going to have all that much. I also do think that you'd still get a reasonable fee for him, but you'll see that a lot of these ones from early on under the new ownership, that's not even that new anymore, a lot of them we overpaid for. I would say we'd get about 16 mil for Benoit Badiashile. His centre-back pairing for so many games during his time at Chelsea Football Club is another man that I do believe we should move on, and that is Axel Disasi. I honestly believe that there is a decent player there in Axel Disasi at a certain level, and that level is probably, I don't know, it's Premier League. I don't know if it's top half. It might be bottom half. I'm not saying it's relegation fodder, but it could be down there, you know, a Man United or a Spurs or someone like that. But he is versatile. He can play pretty much every position across that backline, Axel Disasi. I do think that he can go somewhere and be good. If he had 6 or 7 starts in the Chelsea lineup, I would say that he'd have 3 bad games. I would say that he'd have 2 average games, and I'd say that he'd have a worldie game in there. We saw him away at the Etihad, not the season just gone, the season before, worldie game. But when I have to single out one game over 2 seasons, it probably tells you the standard of the player we're dealing with, and that does not go in line as to what we aspire to be next season. Disasi, we paid quite a lot of money for him. I reckon we get about 10 mil for Axel Disasi. I don't think that Villa are going to be coming back in for him. Now, we need to have a chat about Malo Gusto. We need to have a chat about Malo Gusto because the system does not fit Malo Gusto. Stylistically, he is not best in this system. Stylistically, I would argue that Reece James isn't best in this system, but what Reece James has done, being a more experienced player, being a more proven player, a player that has played at international level, a player that has won Champions Leagues, a player that has competed for Premier League titles. What he's been able to do is adapt his game really, really well. And a lot of you guys have been calling out Malo Gusto, saying that he's been the letdown, he's been the disappointment. I would argue that he has had a lot to deal with, and he is playing a position that isn't not his position. It's almost a million miles away from what his position is. Malo Gusto is best bombing down that flank and whipping balls in. And if we were to go and get a big number 9 that has an aerial presence and is scoring headers, whether that's the lap or not, that could completely change the trajectory of Malo Gusto's career at Chelsea Football Club. But there will be people saying that at the right price, we could move him on this summer. You know, when Trent Alexander-Arnold left Liverpool, I sort of started to think maybe they would have a look at Malo Gusto, and maybe for the right price, I'd consider it. But at this moment in time, I don't want to consider it. I love Malo Gusto, and I think he's going to be such a good player in years to come. Whether or not that will be at Chelsea is the question, and whether or not at this moment in time in the Enzo Maresca system, he may be a player that falls short as a factor of that system. That's a distinct possibility. But I'm not putting a price tag on his head for now. Let's move on to Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, right? He's not going to get in ahead of Lavia. He's not going to get in ahead of Andre Santos, right? So, and it goes without saying, he's not getting in ahead of Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. So, if you say Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Romeo Lavia, Andre Santos, whatever order you put it in, yeah, he's going to be 5th in the pecking order, isn't he, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall? Does he want that? I feel like he could stay in London. I literally feel like he wouldn't have to up and leave. You probably wouldn't even have to move house. But just quickly, I want to take 1 minute to tell you guys about new partner of the channel, Nyla Apparel. I was lucky enough to be sent some clothes by these lot around a month ago, and I've got to be honest with you, since receiving them, they have become my go-to for both t-shirts and now for tracksuits. Now, I would not vouch for something unless I truly believed in the product, and anyone that's seen me out and about around town will know that I am wearing the Nyla t-shirts all of the time. The first thing I noticed about them was how good the quality was, and then when speaking to the guys at Nyla, I found out that the money spent on material in comparison to what the actual t-shirts are sold for is probably about 10 times less than you would usually sell a t-shirt for that cost at. Basically, I'm of the opinion that they're spending about the same on materials as you do most t-shirts in flannels, but instead of paying 200 to 300 quid, you're paying about 10 times less than that. Instead, you're looking at £32 for the t-shirts, including free shipping, and just over £100 for the tracksuits. No shade thrown here, but the other day I had my eyes on a Nike tracksuit in JD Sports. I got it, I went to the checkout, and I was nearly at the point of having a heart attack when I found out that tracksuits, I always assumed, back in the day, growing up, were 100 quid. They're now costing over 200 quid, and these ones are exactly the same quality. So if you want a great fit at a great price for clothing that suits all occasions, hit the link in the description and browse the Nyla website. Thanks again to Nyla Apparel for their support with the channel. Let's get back into the video. Would Fulham take a Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall? You would imagine they would. I mean, you'd imagine Spurs would. Possibly a West Ham, you know. He could probably go to all of those clubs. Not sure about Spurs. Probably Spurs, but all of those clubs. In fact, I am sure about Spurs. I'm more not sure about Fulham. He could probably go to all of them clubs and play week in, week out. We wouldn't get the money we paid for him, but we would get 25 mil, I would say. Matisse Margu, he's going out on loan. If we could get money for Mudryk, I'm going to say I'd let him go. I think I'd let him go. Only good money, though. 55 mil, around that, I'd let him go for. If someone offered us 35 odd mil, I wouldn't let him go. Transfer market, having valued at 18 mil at the moment. But I suppose that's because of the suspension and the ban. Yeah, if it was below 40 mil, I think at this moment in time, because we haven't got depth on that left wing, I'd probably keep Mudryk if he's happy to be a squad rotation player. I think coming off the bench, right, now we're sending Jadon Sancho back, he could prove to be as influential, as much of a plan B as another option, something like that, like Jadon Sancho was. But yeah, I think that Mikhailo Mudryk, even if the suspension gets lifted, ban, whatever you want to call it, I still think he's a million miles off starting for us, and that really does say something. So the right money came in, I'd take it, but am I willing to put a price tag on his head right now? Probably not. Here's a man that I am willing to put a price tag on his head, and that is Christopher Nkunku. He has got to go. But this one is a rare case, really, where a player is there for someone to take, and one, isn't going to be short of offers, and two, I actually genuinely believe that if he picks his next club right, he'll go there and be a good player. I earmarked him as being a potential good signing for Ruben Amorim when he first came in at Man United because of the system he plays and because systematically, if he gets more minutes in that Man United team, he could be good, right? Now I'm not really thinking it. And it's not just Man United. You know, we've seen him linked with Spurs. We've seen him linked with Arsenal. It's not just those clubs. I don't think that Nkunku can do a job in the Premier League. I just don't think that he is strong enough or good enough to be a star player in the Premier League. Not that he's not strong enough or good enough to be a player in the Premier League that can contribute for an Aston Villa or someone like that, but not a star player. He's got the Havertz factor, isn't he? So he could go to the Bundesliga and be a big boy. He could go to Serie A and be a big boy. Possibly La Liga, not too sure about that one. But in the Premier League, he's not a big boy, my friend. He's not a big boy. But we could still get big boy money-ish for him. 35 mil for Nkunku. Now let's move on to the players that we've had out on loan. And there's one man that we need to speak about straight away. And that is Raheem Sterling. Raheem. I honestly felt that this was a statement signing when we made it. It was Bowley's first signing, I believe. Thomas Tuchel wanted him. He went out. He got him. And I'm not about to say that Sterling is finished. I'm not about to say that he can no longer deliver at all off the back of a bad loan spell for Arsenal. Because stats-wise, he wasn't even that bad for Chelsea. Like, he literally wasn't even that bad for Chelsea. And what we do in life, and football especially, is we rate someone on our expectations of them rather than on paper what the stats delivered. And maybe if we had lower expectations of Raheem Sterling, we wouldn't have such a negative perspective on him. But yeah, he didn't return what Chelsea Football Club thought and felt and hoped that he was going to return for us. And don't get me wrong, Sterling had some big moments at Chelsea. He definitely did. The goal against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League, scored some good goals, was really good in the first half of the season under Mauricio Pochettino. But then again, he never won a cup. He never won any individual accolades apart from maybe a player of the month here or there. He lost his place in the team, and in doing so, we became a better side without him. Now, as a left wing rotation, Sterling's not a bad option, you know. Sterling's seriously not a bad option from a footballing sense, you know. Experience off of the bench. He's also played at the highest level. He's won major honours. When he's on the touchline, I have no doubt that he's intelligent enough to read a game and know how he can impact that game when he comes on and players' legs are getting tired. So I do think as a rotation option, he almost makes perfect sense in a way. But from a business aspect, keeping Raheem Sterling would be absolutely criminal because we're still paying him over 200 grand a week when he's at Arsenal. Once he comes back, you're looking at 325 per week. That is ridiculous. And I don't want to single the fella out because he's been a decent player for Chelsea, never a great player, a decent player. He's been a great player for the England national team. He's been a great player for Liverpool and for Man City and at different points in his career. But to simplify it, getting this lad out the door could be the difference between us getting an Osimhen or a Rodrigo or someone like that, because the wages that he is taking up is just truly criminal. Yeah, I think Sterling's got to go. The real question is, who the fuck takes him? Who takes him? Because he's not going to take half his wage. Is he, right? So you're not getting him for less than 160 per week, 180 per week. I don't think you're getting him for less than 200 grand per week. So the Saudis might come in, but they might not. We got to stop hoping and relying that the Saudis are going to come in for people all the time. They might not be interested, and they might not come in. Italy could be an option for him, but I've heard no rumours. And again, they wouldn't pay the wages, but he could go there and tear it up. Arsenal definitely won't want him back. And the problem is, at 30 years old, once you drop your wage demands down, it's very hard, if not impossible, to ever get them back up. So your next contract is always going to be your most important. And therefore, I believe that this rumbles on late. I don't know. At this point, I'd let him go on a free, to be honest. But I'd take 10 mil for him. I'll put 10 mil on Sterling's head. Joao Felix. He should probably go if we can get money for him. It didn't seem like Maresca ever fancied him. And I myself think that, again, he could be a very good rotation player for us. But he's not a guaranteed starter, is he? So if you can get a good bit of dough for him, I believe that we could improve our starting lineup and our bench with players that are more fitted and suited to the system of Enzo Maresca. But I do have a lot of love for Joao Felix, you know. I think he's been a little bit hard done by. Don't think he ever did anything wrong at Chelsea Football Club, really. Even the red card on his first ever debut. Didn't mind it. What we saying? 25 mil for Joao Felix, still pretty young. You might get more. I'm doing this more pessimistic. 25 mil. I'm going to add this all up in a minute. I'm adding it up as we go. I'm like fucking Rain Man over here. Renato Vega, I honestly think that we should keep him because I think that if we get rid of two, let's say, in Disasi and Badia Shil, then really I would love to have one of Gahey or Bramthwaite. I'd probably rather Mark Gahey at this moment in time. And then maybe the other to be Renato Vega, if I'm being honest, especially seeing that he can double up as a left-back and then offer us cover for Cucurella, should Cucurella ever need to come out of the team. It wouldn't be at a cost. His wages wouldn't be ridiculous. It would be a problem solver. But then we have a problem, and that is with Renato Vega himself, right? He played a little bit of football and he felt like he deserved a first team position. We don't see what happens in training. Maybe he was the bollocks in training, but at the same time, you've just come in. You come from what? Basel? Something like that? You do not have a divine right to walk into Chelsea's first team. Get your head down, crack on, get the right attitude, because if you do, then you understand you have a chance to be part of something very, very special here. Cucurella is our second or third most important player. And therefore, you might not get in ahead of him. But if he gets injured, we're fucked. And you have the opportunity to step up to the plate as his natural successor, as his natural replacement. And we'd probably just invert the other side in Reece James or someone like that. So, yeah, sometimes in life, you got to roll the dice. And I think that by rolling that dice, Renato Vega may well roll an 8. Is it an 8? Is that the highest one you can get? I'm not too sure. Yeah, I think he should back himself. But I don't think he will. I don't think players nowadays do back himself and take the risks that he needs to take. So, regardless, I think he'll probably leave. I think he'll probably go back to Juve because he's been good there. So, he'll go there permanently and we'll probably get, let's call it, it could be 35. Let's call it 30 mil for Renato Vega. Chukwu. He's 21 years old. He ain't good enough to come in right now and crack the first team. I listed the midfielders that Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall's not going to get in ahead of, and Chukwu is in the exact same boat. And at 21, you're going to want to go and play regular first-team football. He's just gone down with Southampton. Could he play for another Premier League side? I think he could. I'd probably loan him again, but then we just got so many loans, you know. Strasbourg would be a right step up for Chukwu. Sometimes we sell to Strasbourg. I'm going to say we sell Chukwu. I'm going to say we sell him because there's so many players that I'm just going to go loan them again, like I did Matisse and Margu. I think we could get about 18 mil for Chukwu. 18 mil, I'm calling it now. Chile, Ben Chilwell. He should go now, in all honesty. He's contracted until 2027, so I think you could get a fee for him. I think Chilwell should go MLS, Saudi, if they want him. I think that Chilwell, I think he could definitely play in Italy. Yeah. But he didn't play all that much for Crystal Palace. But he is still proven. He is still a Champions League winner. And he is still a great player if you can get him fit and available on the pitch. I think he's a name as well. Shirt sales, etc. Especially if he was to go to an MLS club, Saudi club. I think we get 8 mil for Ben Chilwell. Carney Chukwuemeka, I would absolutely love to keep Carney. I think that he could link up with the likes of Esteval when he comes in. Cole Balmer, Noni Madueke, Nicholas Jackson, Liam Delap, everyone across that front line. I do not think that Carney Chukwuemeka would be at all out of place. I have always rated him from day dot when he was brought in from Aston Villa. But he's just had a taste of Champions League football, you know, high up in the Bundesliga, competing for Dortmund week in, week out. And he's not really gonna want to go from that to, you know, competing for spots even on the bench for Chelsea Football Club and really getting on off of that bench. It doesn't seem like Enzo Maresca likes to rotate his starting lineups too often, and we saw it a lot in the Conference League, but now we're playing Champions League football. Is he going to rotate to that extent? I don't know if he will. I think for Carney Chukwuemeka, hasn't got the amount of game time that he would have liked, has shown glimpses of brilliance. I think he'll go on and be a top player. I think he'll move, probably go to Borussia Dortmund. I'm calling it 35 mil, maybe. Yeah, we might even get more. Brower. I loved Brower, man, but Brower can go. 5 mil, probably get for him with his injuries. Kepa, he signed the contract extension so we can get a bit of money for him. Bournemouth should probably take him up. 10 mil, we get for him. That is over 240 million in transfer fees. If we could do the business right, yeah, if we could do it right. That's the main point here. But if we could do it right, that's over 240 million in transfer fees. In this best case scenario, right, that is 1,463,000 off the books in wages per week. And despite the fact I've mentioned a few players here that you guys might be personal fans of, they might be your favourite players, yeah? They might be what Mudryk is to Josh Aveste. But despite that, I honestly do believe if we could get that off the wage bill, that would be phenomenal for this club. And not only that, if we could get that off the wage bill, and we're being completely honest, we're not a worse team without any of those players. Anyone I've just mentioned, squad, you could argue, but starting 11, we're not a worse team without any of those players. It doesn't make us any weaker. Chuck in them 13 players out the door, and I'm not including loans, and I'm not including Mudryk and Gusto, and even Fofana people have spoken about. I'm just including 13 players that I don't think make us any better, and I don't think we're any worse off with their departures. Those departures are the difference between potentially getting a big name centre back, potentially even having the funds to, had the wage demands for an Osimhen, a Rodrigo, someone like that. We're paying $500,000 a week to just Sterling and Ben Chilwell. Get that off the book, then we can look at what we can get. Because at the minute, we're looking at our wage bill and we're going, okay, what the ownership are trying to do is what they do at Brighton and what they do at Brentford. And we don't like that as Chelsea fans. And listen, every indication would lead you to believe that that is factual. But actually, how are we to say that, we started to spend a little bit better once Lukaku's wages come off the books, right? How are we to say that if we can get rid of, 1.4 mil per week in wages, then we might not go out and sign some star-studded names that can help us compete for Premier League honours, for Champions League honours. We have got the keys to the chest now. It's about what the board and the ownership do with it, okay? So, it might be a bit extreme, but that is my cull of the Chelsea players. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who you wouldn't have sold that I put a price tag on their head. Who you would have that I didn't mention. And let me know who you want to see signed. That will be the next video coming out off the channel. I said it was about 260 million. Let's see who some of that 260 million could potentially go on. I will see you all in the next one.